I've been saying a lot that I didn't know what I didn't know. But I'll tell you, now that I know, it's impacted my life in ways I did not expect and has certainly changed me forever. As I am coming up upon the anniversary of my dad coming to live with us last year and then passing away a few months later, I've been really reflecting on what it's like to experience the anniversary and events surrounding someone's passing. Something I never understood. Honestly, just didn't get it. And now I really understand. So this week has been very reflective for me. And I've made the decision, I wanted to do this for a while, but even for my own self, I want to record and save the memories and what happened surrounding my parents' passings. Each one was very different. My mom will be her own story and my dad his own story. It's been interesting to me how death can happen so differently and yet so close together. And of course that's the case, but until you're really faced with it, I don't think that you actually reflect upon it and truly just give it some time and thought in one's mind and heart. So this is going to be the story of my dad and what happened last year so that I can always remember and my kids can always remember and we can go back to it and not forget the details. I don't know what I'm going to say, and I'm sure I'll mess up a lot of it, and I'll probably cry and miss some details, but it's going to be what it is. So at this time last year, my dad came to California for an annual family event. I had gone to visit him in May. He retired from dentistry this year at 84 years old. This year meaning that year, last year. He'd retired from dentistry at 84 years old, and his office was throwing him a retirement party in June, which I was not able to attend. So I went up in May and spent some time with him, and he was doing good. We were walking around the block. He loved to go for his walks at night, and we sat and talked a lot. And at certain points, he was kind of alluding to the fact that his place was getting too big for him, and it was too much and too hard to take care of. But at the same time, he loved it and he wanted to take care of it. And when he got stronger, then he'd be able to pull the weeds again. So it didn't seem like it was the right time to make any sudden moves. And I told him, well, you know, Dad, that when the time is right, we're going to know that the time is right. And of course, you're always welcome to come and live with us and to live with me in California. So he knew that. So everything seemed fine. May, June, he had his retirement party, a lot of people there. It was a wonderful time celebrating him and all that he had contributed to in healing in people's lives. And he called me in June and asked if I thought it would be a good idea for him to come to California for this family reunion that happens at the end of July. It's my dad's side of the family. His sister lives here, my cousins live here, and it's an event in which we knew everyone would be present. And looking back, a piece of me believes that he knew that this was probably going to be the last time that he would be able to see everyone. And so should he come? And so we said yes. And so he made the arrangements and he got here the last weekend of July. We went out to Sebastopol and all spent the day together. The plan was that we'd meet him there and then he would come and stay with me in Fairfield for a few days and then return home to Washington. This annual event is a lot of fun. We all get together and we play horseshoes. Believe it or not, it's a horseshoe tournament. And my dad decided that he was going to throw horseshoes. So they paired the oldest with the youngest, which actually ended up being Dad and my oldest son, Daniel, he was the youngest tosser. They were paired together and my dad got a ringer. So Dad and Papa and Daniel had just a fabulous day together. On that day, my dad, the ground is uneven and he took a little fall. I was not there, I didn't see it. Dan was there and he saw it and he said, you know, he didn't even go down hard. It was just, he kind of crumpled, knew he was losing his footing, I think, and just kind of crumpled to the ground and sat down. Well, that like rattled things in his body where he was not doing well even by the end of the day. sleeping in his room. And when we brought him here to Fairfield, even to get him into our big truck, my boys had to almost lift him in. So it was all very sobering and happening very quickly. We got back to Fairfield, all settled in for the night. That was a Saturday night. I woke up on Sunday morning with Dan already gone to church, and my dad was sitting in my family room with his head in his hands, telling me I'm in so much pain. He almost immediately was barely moving. This fall had triggered something within his body that had just exploded his pain level. We knew that he was in pain periodically in Washington. He talked about it, but like dad, and most dads and older men are, they just don't talk about it. So really how he was doing there, he wasn't being honest with us or with himself as to how far his cancer had progressed. So I called in all my resources. I have a friend that got me a walker really quick, and on that day, that's where it started. Dad was in a walker. But sharp as anything, we were doing great. He was playing cribbage with Dan. We would eat meals together. But he was supposed to go back home to Washington in a few days. And pretty quickly, we realized he was in no condition to fly there, nor could I fly there with him and then leave him there. So we decided that for an indefinite time, he would need to stay with us until he got stronger and then he could return. But there were so many things in Washington that he needed. We needed to go there quickly, get what he needed, and get back here. And this was not a trip that could be taken just by airplane. There were things that needed to come back to California that had to be driven. So by Tuesday, I was on a plane. Wednesday morning, we had National Night Out on Tuesday, full block party, 150 people here in the street. Dad loved it. He stood outside, actually ate 2 hot dogs. That was amazing. He doesn't eat that kind of food. And by Wednesday morning, I was on a plane to Washington, and Dan and one of our very close friends got in our car and drove in order to meet me there. I started packing as soon as I got there, packed through the night, fell asleep. These guys got there at like 1 a.m. They slept a little bit. We got up and we started packing the car, getting all the essentials, and we jumped in the car and drove back. So we were back that quickly. One of my friends who has a background in healthcare and home health was able to come and stay with my dad. And my friends came and had dinner with him and would check in the morning, and the rally that happened of support immediately blew me away. So we got back, we had his stuff, and he wasn't really doing any better. He was getting worse. And I called a really close friend of mine who's a doctor, and we were able to miraculously fast track Dad into all these health services. It was truly a miracle. Within days, we had a call from one of the best oncologists in the area that said, I want to see your dad on Tuesday. She called me from her cell phone to my cell phone and personally made the appointment. The way that people showed up for us and helped us within the community and within the medical community was absolutely just mind-blowing to all of us. So we realized very quickly that we didn't know what was happening, but our lives were changing very, very quickly. We had not anticipated this at all. And it wasn't easy. We have memories now of sitting down next to our pool with our friends in the evening. We had kind of a routine with Dad, and we would sit and we were just numb. There was just no knowing what the future held or how long. And we cleared our calendar. That's what we did. We just cleared our calendar. And Dan and I were juggling work and home life and cooking, and we had a big trip planned to meet our daughter and Jeremiah in Charleston, South Carolina. We really wanted to go, but we couldn't, and so we were able to postpone it. Meanwhile, I'm not going to say that it was easy. It was hard. It was relationally hard. We had tension together, Dan and I, as to how the future was going to play out. How trapped were we? And of course, I'm the daughter, so I'm absorbing that in a different way than he is, though he was like a son to my parents, absolutely. We were very young when we met, and my parents are like parents to him, but still you come at it from a little bit of a different angle. So it was a lot of learning and growing going on at the same time. And we realized that we couldn't continue doing what we were doing without help. And God brought us the most amazing healthcare team that came in. And you think that you can't have people come into your home and you go off to work and you just leave them to care for your loved one. Well, these women were amazing, and I never for 1 minute didn't completely trust them with my house, with my dad. And we would come home from work and they would greet us and everything would be good, and they would have spent the day together, and he was hydrated and fed and laughing. And one of my best stories, one of our care team, Caroline, she came to the door on a Sunday morning. She came on Sunday so I could go to church and kind of have a day to be out. And I said, "Oh, Caroline, how are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh my gosh, my tooth is bothering me so bad. I have hardly slept last night." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She said, "But it's good. I'm good." Well, I know my dad's a dentist, but she came in and she sat down on the sofa right next to his chair, like she would do every time. And he would always say, "Good morning, how are you?" And she said, "Well, Runer, my tooth is really bothering me." And his eyes lit up, and all of a sudden he was super awake, and he sits right up and he sits forward and he goes, "Well, where exactly is it? What's hurting? Where's the pain coming from?" And the twinkle in his eye was the best. And she looked at him and she goes, "Oh yeah, I forgot you're a dentist." I said, "Well, you guys are gonna be just fine. I'll catch up with you later." And they had the best day together over and over and over again. So fast forward, Dad's condition really declined. And interestingly enough, even the medical profession, they don't know down to the hour or the minute when someone's passing. I knew that my dad was definitely declining. He was moving more and more slowly, if at all, and we had to help him tremendously. We had a beautiful nighttime routine with him. Of course, he always brushing his teeth, always brushing the teeth. We'd get all that done, get him all situated in bed, and Dan or I would read scripture to him. We read Psalm 23 a lot and pray with him. And many times Dan would say, "Dad, would you like to pray tonight?" And absolutely, almost every time he would say, "Yes, I want to pray." So sometimes we would all pray. And Dad would pray for everybody, all the family, all the kids, all the grandkids, for the country, for salvation, for those who didn't know Jesus. He would pray and pray from the depths of his heart and soul, and it was beautiful. And we would tuck him in and say goodnight. And of course that was pretty early, so we would just decompress and know tomorrow's another day. So as Dad's condition declined, I began sleeping on the sofa just outside of his room so that I could be near him. And I would check on him through the night and bring him water and talk to him and hold his hand and just make sure that he was okay. And early one morning, I heard him kind of cough, and I got up and checked on him, and he was still okay. And I went back and called my medical team. They give you a specific number to call, and they always just pick up. And they were like my lifeline. And I called and I said, I think something's wrong and I don't know how to use this oxygen machine. And I was getting very scared that I was gonna have to set that up and get it just, whether they shown me already or not, didn't matter. I was kind of in a panic, and I heard just one more cough, and I was on the phone, and I went around the corner to his bed, and I started yelling for Dan, and I told the nurse on the phone, I said, I think he's gone. I think he's gone. And sure enough, that was it. God just took him in a blink. No oxygen, just took him from all the pain that he was in. He came to us the end of July and passed away on the 10th of October. And in that time, it seemed like an eternity. We can hardly believe, looking back, that it was August to September to October, and that was actually it. My dad loved me so much, and his passing was so jarring to my life. But at the same time, the way that everything was orchestrated could not have been more perfect. Because had he been in rural Sequim, Washington by himself, there's no way we could have transported him. He couldn't have traveled. I would have gone up there and stayed. That's what would have happened. But for how long? And we had the resources and the people who came around us and made miracles happen and brought us meals and sat with us and sat with my dad and held his hand and talked with him and got to know him and loved on him. Our friends and our family that showed up and supported us during that time is it's indescribable, the way that they held us up. And this was where he was supposed to be. And we describe it as a gift of time. Because what we shared and how we got to know each other even in a deeper way and just clung to each other during that time was so special. I would do it again, which seems weird, but I really would do it again. And the coroner came and took him away, and we have a tradition in our family that when somebody leaves, that we double honk. And they drove away, and I stood in the driveway, and Dan and I looked at each other and said, beep, beep. And that's the story.